Staying Alive UK. Share your story.
Hello and welcome to the Share Your Story podcast series, a business biography, their story so far. My name is Michael de Groot and I am Chief Storyteller at Staying Alive UK. My purpose through this podcast series is to allow my guests, through their stories, inspire you to take the first step towards your new business venture, or maybe if you are already in business, develop your existing business even further. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you have a massive choice in which podcasts you listen to. I'm really pleased and delighted to have with us today Phil Jones. And as always, I'm going to share a little bit about Phil before you hear from him. As the author of 5 separate best-selling books and the youngest ever winner of coveted Sales Trainer of the Year award, Phil M. Jones is currently one of the most in-demand speakers on the planet. Yeah, you heard right, on the planet. Phil's famous for his powerful magic words and his highly engaging, dry British approach to what is often a subject that is littered with hype and power-hungry gurus. By teaching exactly what to say and the power of using what he calls his magic words in order to increase influence and persuasion, he inspires audiences and they walk away with a new perception of sales, armed with proven skills and an insatiable hunger to put their new learnings into action. Welcome to the Share Your Story podcast, Phil. How are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you, Michael. Great to be here.
Thank you so much for appearing on the podcast. I'm really looking forward to hearing your story. And we're going to launch in with the first question that I ask everybody, which is share a little bit about your own personal life. For instance, where were you born, a bit about your education, where you now live, about your family, your hobbies, your interests. Just give us a sense of the person behind the business, as it were. So over to you.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I don't know how far we want to go on this, but I've got quite a potted story since getting involved on this earth all those many moons ago. But I grew up as a builder's son, and my mum worked at a garden centre after bringing us up as children in a little village called Denham, just outside Uxbridge in Buckinghamshire in the Greater London area. And most of my childhood times, I guess, was just normal kid stuff, you know, climbing trees, playing sports, hanging out with friends, trying the best I can to be able to learn things and get on with stuff. And I went to school in a little place called Amersham, so I found myself at a school that was a little better than perhaps I should have been reaching for, having my parents work remarkably hard to allow me to go through some tutoring and get through grammar school education. And I was at one of the top schools in the UK called Dr. Challoner's Grammar School in Amersham. Right. That was where my schooling was based. And in terms of where I am right now, I mean, I've traveled here, there and everywhere. So I have bounced around through my professional career, which I'm sure we'll get to. But now home for me is a split set of circumstances. So I have, say, 2/3 of my home life is here right now in New York City, just outside Manhattan. And I also have a home back in Buckinghamshire near Marlow on the Thames. So I split my life in this transatlantic fashion, and I live here in the United States with my wife, Charlotte. And I guess that's about me in a potted kind of history. You asked hobbies and interests too?
Yeah.
Well, I'd still class business very much as a hobby of mine. I love tinkering with my business and other people's businesses, like other people enjoy tinkering with motor cars.
Yes.
But outside of the business stuff, I like to write for fun. I do the best I can to keep fit. I run 12, 15 miles a week. I do yoga where I can. I lift some weights when it's possible. And then I enjoy all the cities that I get to travel to is to try and get around them on foot. So that's the one thing I like to try and do, is to stick a pair of trainers on and wander around a city and see what I can learn from it just by aimlessly wandering around and seeing what I might bump into.
And just kind of soaking the atmosphere, I suppose. So what what made you decide? And I'm just interested in the kind of New York and UK or United States and United Kingdom scenario. What made you decide to kind of split your time between the two?
I guess there's paralleled reasons, and nothing's quite as simple as this is why and this is how. There's always, a dozen or more reasons as to why something comes about. I did, I guess if I go right back to childhood, I've always had this fascination with the US and understanding of the big city. I mean, I was the kid that had a poster of New York City on the wall and would be, inspired by the movies and things that we would have seen that would have allowed us to dream a little bit bigger.
Yes.
And if I take that kind of boyish kind of ambition towards the US, and then I add to that where my business was at the time as well, is 2012-ish. My speaking business and training business in the UK was getting the attention from the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And in my line of work, it's very much like musicians or actors or those kind of things. There's this cracking of America thing that is a far bigger marketplace for the world of personal and professional development than exists in its entirety in the UK. So when clients started to request my services over here, it became a very real thing of saying, well, how do I make that work?
Yes.
Couple that into me bumping into the love of my life, who happened to be American.
Right.
Then what we're starting to do is we're starting to build a set of reasons that said, okay, the business is dragging me here. My personal circumstances and relationship are bringing me across to the other side of the pond too. And the boyish kind of ambition of wanting to have a roll of the dice in the big cities makes it makes it the way that we do things. Why do I still keep the UK side of things? England's always my home. Yes. That's never going to change. My family are there, and I enjoy being able to get back towards it. I have clients there, and there's no place like home. So I'm very fortunate that I've managed to build a business that's allowed me to have a bit of the best of both worlds and to enjoy all the things that I enjoy.
Oh, wow. That's fantastic. So it's interesting about the poster when you were younger on the wall and, visualizing that dream you had of getting involved with the United States. That's just incredible. I mean, people say that, don't they? Use posters or use vision boards or things like that. So I guess you had your early vision board on the wall there.
And it wasn't even a conscious decision. It was more just a kind of, that's the way I look at things. So I don't want anybody listening in thinking, stick a poster or something on the wall and it comes real. It's more a case of the fact that we get what we focus on. Yes. And this life of mine that has come up has just come from putting one foot in front of the other. It hasn't been a 5, 10, 15-year plan. It's been a what next plan, and a persistency of keep moving forward rather than here's a vision, let me define it, let me create a giant plan and then go out and do it. It's a little more organic than that.
Yeah. And I know that's the case because I have obviously listened to some of other audios and videos, and I'm just intrigued by your very early first job that you did, and how that came about. And I know you've probably shared this story many times before, but I'm sure the listeners who are people who are probably, this podcast is aimed at people that are perhaps stuck in a job, they're not happy, they always want to do their own thing, they've got a great idea, but they haven't got the courage. And, people like yourself coming on the podcast will hopefully inspire some of those guys and girls to decide, right, I'm going to do it now. And so tell us about your first job, what you did and how that came about.
Yeah, I don't even know whether I can ever answer what was my very first job. I always had an ambition of saying I would like a little bit more for myself. And I mentioned earlier on that I was at a school that was perhaps a little bit too good for me. Mm-hmm. And by being at a school that was like that, what I was surrounded by was many of my peer group, the other pupils, would have the things that I would like, yet we as a family weren't in a position to be able to provide me with those things. So I did the first thing, which was ask my parents for money. And then I realized I had another option of going out and making some money for myself. So I decided to pick the path of least resistance. And the first thing this started with was as simple as taking the sandwiches that my mum had made for me and selling them on for a profit to the other kids in my classes to allow me both the ability to go buy myself a hot dinner plus have some extra change in my pocket. This kind of thirst and hunger for wanting to be entrepreneurial and have a go, wanting to make a difference, had me deciding what are some of the other things I could ask people for? Where could I see some examples of where I could add value to other people's lives and then ask for some sums of money for it by return? And the next kind of big, bold move I made was knocking on the doors of my neighbors and asking them politely whether they would be interested in having their cars washed.
Yes.
And some said yes, some said no. Most just asked me how much I was charged, which I very quickly realized meant that they were interested in what I was about. And by the age of 15, my little car cleaning business had grown to a point where I was generating more revenue than the majority of my school teachers.
It's incredible. On your own, you were doing this. You didn't have a team.
No, I started on my own, and over a period of time, I then was working with some other local kids that would be completing the cars. I would be managing it and managing the schedules of the customers that we had on board, and I'd be making a margin in between. So, and still doing stuff myself too. But I think at its peak, there was probably 11 or 12 of us that were involved in the business when I was 14, 15 years of age.
Brilliant. I just love that story. That's just, I guess lots of people would say an entrepreneur in the making, but I guess you didn't realize perhaps even what that meant at the time. You just wanted to help people and get paid for it.
Absolutely. And there's more things that kind of come out is, the car washing story is the one that gets romanticized through my career. But at the same time, I was working a job at the weekends at a garden centre, which was the same garden centre that my mum worked at. That gave me opportunity to get access to discounted lawn turf and plants and materials and grew my knowledge and education there. So in evenings, I would start to do some landscaping. And I learned a little bit about how to be a landscape gardener and would do basic jobs for people there. And I had that as another small business. My uncle was a DJ. So what I did is I reinvested some of my material, some of my profits in some of the other businesses into building my own mobile disco business once I'd got my driving license. So at the age of 17, well, prior to 17, I had my dad driving me around, but at 17, I was using my Friday and Saturday nights to do weddings and 40th birthday parties and bar mitzvahs and everything else in between, and getting paid handsome sums of money for playing some music and giving people a good time in an evening. So I had all sorts of things going on in my teens, right through to a point that then I kind of followed the advice of going to get a proper job and going to learn in the field. And this was my counter to going to university. Although I had an offer on the table for a fairly good university in the UK and I got great grades through my GCSEs and A-levels, I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to go the university track. So I decided to get my education in the workplace, learning from some of the biggest and the best in their field. So I got accepted into a graduate training program, one of the only people to do so without a degree, with Debenhams department stores. And then very quickly in that management trainee role, got given the position of sales manager through the fact that the person who was supposed to be mentoring me went off long-term sick. And through just opportunity of circumstances was thrown in at the deep end in a senior management position, running a big team, multi-million-pound turnover in my late teens. So that was an interesting set of circumstances. And I had a kind of mindset through my professional career that was largely in retail, that space, that I'd go where the next job is. I'd be geographically mobile. I'd be ambitious to be able to take opportunities when they presented themselves. And in a 4.5-year period with Debenhams, I went through 11 different store locations, was involved in new store opening projects, turnaround projects, etc. And I got my feet wet real quick in a variety of different circumstances. and then went from there to work with another big retailer in the UK called DFS.
Yeah.
And in my early 20s was running teams of sales staff that were 30, 40, 50, 60 years of age, experienced in what they do, and had to help these teams full of people to generate better results, plus be responsible for the operations of the business. And that was a huge learning curve for me to understand not just the sales and customer service part of running a business, but how to run an operation that meets its requirements and fulfills its responsibilities and looks at the whole P&L side of things too. So that was a good education. Mm. I went from there and worked with a couple of top soccer clubs. So I was with Birmingham City and Leicester City, helping with the commercial and licensing side of their businesses and the retail operations and helping secure shirt sponsorship deals, etc. And from there went and built a big property business. So I had a very varied kind of professional career spanning what was really just a 9-10 year period of time.
Yes.
And then again said, okay, the property, the consulting that I did into the sports world was largely a business, but not really a business as such, was more like a self-employed role.
Yeah. The
thing that I did in partnership with somebody else with the property stuff was a business in its entirety. But then when the world changed through, the economic crash that happened in 2008, I was then left to decide to say, well, what is it I really, really, really want to do? And all my life I'd looked towards mentors and coaches and guides, and was a studier of people like Zig Ziglar and Jim Rohn and people who were kind of the founders of the personal development stuff and Nightingale Conan and any of the material that came out there.
Yes.
So I always saw myself at some point in my life doing things like speaking at seminars and producing informational kind of products through books and those kind of things. But I anticipated it coming far later in my life.
Yeah.
But as somebody who found themselves in the circumstances of having a great business on a Monday and then having something on a Friday that we could no longer work with through the economy and the rules changing on everything, I was left wondering what to do. And the business I have today is a business again of accident. I knew what I wanted to do there and then because I saw a problem that needed fixing and an opportunity that wrapped around it. And that's what business is all about. It's understanding who do you serve and what problems do you fix for them. The people I started to serve were all the people who were in and around the world of business, perhaps doing something for themselves and struggling through the recession because they didn't know how to sell.
Yes.
And the business that I now have really founded itself based on helping those people, delivering essential sales skills to non-salespeople, helping them to find clarity over either how to get more customers or how to get more from the ones they've already got, or how to get people coming back more often. And that's where I started with a one-day workshop program. And everything that's grown in this business as it stands here today has grown out of that foundation of a desire to serve others, helping them understand that something that I understand with great clarity.
And I mean, what's interesting, when you did the property business, I mean, that could have been like your retirement plan as well, couldn't it?
Well, the property business, we were scaling up to a position to be able to sell out to a multinational company for tens of millions of pounds.
Yeah.
And that just didn't happen. That was anticipated to be a big major brand, and then that route that many entrepreneurs go through of saying we want to build something with the purpose of selling something. That's what we were aiming to do, but through external circumstances, that was no longer an option.
And how did that affect you, Phil? Because if you were going on that track, going, okay, this is where it's at, we're going to build this business and then sell it, and then having the rug pulled from underneath you with the recession and the credit crunch, etc., that happened, how did that affect you kind of emotionally, mentally? What happened?
It was a challenge. And number one, you've got the ethical challenge. We had a situation of the fact that everything we were doing was building investment opportunities for people's futures. It was all built on good information at the time. But when the information changed, so did the opportunity for the people that were already invested in it.
Yeah.
So there was a 12-month period of time where what we had to do was to work through damage limitation, helping the developer be able to get his negotiations done right so at least people could get keys for properties and things could be finished, helping the people who were in on deals to be able to get those completed so that the mortgages could be triggered so the bank could keep servicing the loans. Like this was a very real thing where people think that big organizations have the ability to be able to, to cover everything. But we saw what happens when banks go under or people can't do it. We were in the heart of that, trying to play middleman and peacekeeper between hundreds of clients, 3-4 major development houses and 2 giant banks, trying to keep this thing together, knowing that there was nothing in it for us, just to be able to, to finish what was started. So that was a challenge where we ran for nearly a year without a single piece of revenue coming in, but still continuing to service the requirements that we had to, knowing that we got to the end of the whole thing with no money left in the business. When I started this from scratch, I had the challenge of a fairly rich lifestyle. I had a big mortgage payment, a big car. I had geared myself up in my life to the fact that I had this thing I would tell myself as a kid, which was a stupid piece of advice for anybody listening, is I used to spend money on perceived future earnings.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, I'll earn it one day, I'll spend it now, you only live once type stuff. And so I was left geared up at, what was I at the time? I was 26, 27 years of age, giant mortgage, big car payments, credit card debts, an overhead that was a personal overhead that was excess of £5,000 a month that just needed to be made to keep the wheels turning.
Yes.
And the anticipation that I'd have that there would be a big lump of money in the bank at one point had gone because we'd traded that down. So challenging the building of a new business, the being Mr. Positive in front of others, keeping a family together, being the strength of an individual within your own family unit, and trying to be able to sort out this administrative mess that was left behind was hard.
Yeah.
But what it then teaches you is something that money can't buy. And I got very close to losing my home and to have people knocking on the door and asking for money that I didn't have, and things get repossessed and somebody come and take a car away, and all of this can really rock you and rile you a little. But what happens when you get close to what many would call the bottom is you realize it ain't that bad.
Yeah.
You're like, I got air in my lungs. My body's fit and healthy. My mind is strong and it's been trained and it's been challenged, and I'm good. And I have a very humbling feeling that I know with absolute certainty that as long as I have my health, there is nothing that can happen to me that will mean that I can't earn a living. And that gives you some confidence to live in the world with a level of freedom. And I think that when you know with the belief of how you can turn tricks, not to make a fortune, but to get by, you don't live under the same anxiety of many employees that are hopeful of the fact that they're going to continually be relevant at some point in the future. They're hopeful of the fact the company's going to make the right decisions to keep them in a job. Like, I know the business that I run today is not going to be the same business I run in 3 years or 10 years. Yeah. Might be the same name over the door, but I have to evolve. But I'm in control of that. I can see it. And if the cash flow is not running the way I want it to, that's my fault and I'm responsible for it, and it doesn't come as a surprise. And I think this is things that where people think that running a business for yourself is risky. It's not so much as risky, it's transparent and it's honest. You can see it.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite liberating when you choose to look at it through that angle, as opposed to see it as something that's expected to go wrong. And people read the stats that so many new businesses fail, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Everything's succeeding and everything's failing. It's just the only time something gets to a point of being a definitive failure is the minute you choose to draw a line under it.
Yeah.
You can always keep pushing and keep going and keep evolving and keep changing. And I guess the beauty in entrepreneurship is consistent reinvention. That's the art form and the creativity that we should all love so much.
And you're totally right. And, the same has happened to me in terms of having to reinvent and do different things. And I think, I heard a quote once, and that's, there's no such thing as failure. There's only feedback. And once you get that feedback that something isn't working, then you've got to be nimble on your feet and try and think of something else that you might be able to do and put a value on and believe that you can provide that to companies, individuals, whoever, and charge for it. And I think, not everybody can do that. Absolutely. Some people are quite happy to just work for somebody else. But I think if you're really hungry and you've got a great idea, then it's worth the risk to try it out.
I think everybody can do it. The difference is are you prepared to choose to do it?
Yeah.
The biggest thing that stands in the majority of people's way is something that isn't even true. It's the fact that they haven't even taken the steps to be able to understand what might be true. They're fearful of something that doesn't even exist.
Correct.
And, it's like somebody being scared of swimming that's never got in a swimming pool. You can't be scared of something until you've tried it. And the minute you try it is where you start to be able to get that education. I think a myth right now, though, is this belief that you can do anything you want to do, or that being an entrepreneur is in some way glamorous. Firstly, you cannot do anything you want to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes your path chooses you rather than you choosing it. An example of which is, I am probably the United States go-to guy when it comes to hearing aid sales right now. I've helped more audiologists and hearing aid dispensers understand how to build and grow a practice than I could have ever imagined even existed.
Yeah.
I didn't pick that career path. I just did a great job at a conference one day that, then somebody from one of these companies came and asked me to do a piece of work for them. And I did that, and I did a great job of that. And then that opened up another opportunity. And then 5 years later, I'm that guy. And I think, more and more people need to understand that the marketplace decides your direction. You don't. What we are as entrepreneurs is servants to that marketplace. And you have to be prepared to serve a group of people with what they need to your best of your abilities. And forget that being an entrepreneur is anything about success for yourself. It's not. Like, you have to put yourself towards the very bottom of that pile and care more about the people that you serve than you do yourself. And only if you get the results for the people that you promise to, then you get to win as a byproduct of that success you create for others.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's starting from a different place, isn't it? It's not saying, oh, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to be really wealthy. And it's looking at it in a different way and saying, actually, I have an idea, I have something that I can provide to people that will help them. And that's your starting point rather than the other way around. So, yeah, thank you. Love that.
Absolutely.
And so now you've said and explained that, the development of your business and the course that you've taken, some of it's happened by accident. There's no necessarily 5-10 year plan, master plan that says this is where I want to get to. But have you got a 12-month plan? Have you got is it worthwhile having some sort of a plan and a vision for what you want to do next? And what might that be for you?
What I try and have is boundaries more so than rigid plans. And some of the boundaries that I have in place right now is what I will and what I won't do. So, for example, I have a financial boundary that says, for me to spend a day at work traveling away from the place that I call home, then there's a certain sum of money that I need to be paid for that. So if it makes me that sum of money, then I'm prepared to do it. And if it doesn't, the answer is no. There are other boundaries that I have where I know what it is that I'm working towards. And I have this philosophy or principle that I call my cupcake principle. And my cupcake principle is that, if you gave a child a cupcake, the thing the child would want to eat is the frosting and the sprinkles and not the cupcake. Mm-hmm. But what that does is that just makes you sick and your teeth fall out. What really needs to happen is that there's some substance to the way in which you live your life. And I think businesses need to be seen this way too. So what I try to do is to make sure that I use about a third of the time that I have available to build my business to build the base of my cupcake. And the base of my cupcake is the thing that makes my life stand up. That pays my overhead, pays my bills, pays my staff, puts me into a situation where I know that what I can do is I can live month to month without worry. So I work hard to have that foundation in place. And more often than not, that is work that just is work. It's good work. It's not great work. Just work. That gives me the freedom to go on the quest of some of the things that make my heart sing. So what I'm doing right now is I am in the process of looking to stabilize my cupcake of my business.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking to be able to do over the next 12 months because we've shifted some of the boundaries. You know, I now have a different perspective on my life given the transatlantic nature that has happened and formalized itself more so over the last year. And we have some life goals that we want to achieve within that I need to get taken care of and provisioned for. So I want to stabilize that. That doesn't sound too sexy, but I want that in place. And then I have frostings and sprinkles. And this is the stuff that makes me smile big. So I have 5 or 6 stages that I really want to get on, and I want to make it count. I'd like to get to the accolade of 1 million readers of my current new book, Exactly What to Say. I have another brand new book launch coming out in January, and my aspirations for that book is for it to help make my profile into more of a household name. And that book is going to go through a big promotional tour through major physical bookstores here in the US, and have me ranked alongside some of the people that I've called greats in the writing world, people like Tim Ferriss and Jim Collins and those kind of guys. So I have these, I call it sprinkles and frosting that I want to go for, that I don't need to do, but I want to do. And if I get there, that's the thing that makes my heart sing and makes me smile big. But I'm also quite content if it doesn't work out. I just know that I'm going to have a good go at it.
Yeah. Well, and I suppose that last bit that you said about making your heart sing, at the end of the day, that's what we're doing it for. You know, we've got to enjoy it as well. Yes, the practical bits have to work and they have to fall in place. And there has to be a revenue stream that's coming in regularly to pay for all the overheads. But really, if you didn't enjoy it anymore, you wouldn't want to do it, right?
Well, if you didn't have something to look forward to. You know, we all need something to look up to, but we all need something to chase, something to run at. And I think that's the bit that people forget. They have so much to run from, but nothing to run towards. And I'm very happy with the fact that I probably won't achieve everything I'm running towards. I can find acceptance in that, but it doesn't stop me for trying. So it's having ridiculously audacious goals and then getting after it.
Yeah.
But for what it makes of you, for what it stretches you towards, for how it develops you as a person, not for the achieving of the actual thing.
You're talking more again about enjoy the journey rather than the destination, I guess. It's actually the process of doing it rather than having to necessarily achieve it.
I heard a quote that rings true with me when I did some studying of leadership work earlier on in my career. And it was studying the work of a guy called Paul J. Meyer. And he talked about his definition of success. And I love this quote. And it's his definition of success is the progressive realization of predetermined, worthwhile, and achievable goals. So I'll read that back. That's the progressive realization of predetermined, challenging, worthwhile, and achievable goals. But that's predetermined and progressive realization. That means that there is an acceptance of it isn't a wallow in the moment. It's the fact that success is a feeling. It's not a place. It's this belief that we are continuing to grow towards some form of common purpose. So it's not so much just enjoy the journey. It's keep moving, keep moving, keep moving. And that's what, for me, humanity is all about. But doing it with the purpose of saying that we are looking to make improvements for the greater good, not for a selfish set of reasons.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my next question was going to be about what one bit of advice would you give aspiring business owners? But I guess you've just given me that already. But might you have another one up your sleeve?
Yeah, I guess if somebody is an aspiring business owner, are you defining that as somebody who has just got started or somebody who is looking to get started?
You know, actually, this is hugely valuable for anybody who's in business already, because people do lose their mojo as well, you know, and they lose their faith if things are going wrong. So it could be people already in business. It could be people who want to start their own business, or someone who's just got started. Any of those apply, I guess.
I have a very basic set of principles for success, and these are not sexy whatsoever. And it's to do the basics to a high standard consistently.
Yeah.
That's it. And then get up and do the same again, and get up and do the same again. And people look for the silver bullet in things, or they think that what's going to happen is they're going to arrive at this mysterious place called there. And when they get there, then everything's going to be easier. It isn't the case. It's do the basics to a high standard consistently. Do the basics to a high standard consistently. And then check and measure what's working. What's working well, do more of it. What's not working so well, do less of that. Repeat. And that's business.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to it than that. And do the work. Continue to do the work, and the rewards will follow. But the biggest difference between an employee mindset and a business owner's mindset is an employee who wants to say, pay me and I'll do the work. An entrepreneur or an aspiring business owner needs to understand you do the work and then you get paid. There's a complete role reversal.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. That's really brilliant. I love that. Now, you mentioned briefly your latest book, and I'd love for you to share with everybody a little bit about it. And it's called Exactly What to Say, The Magic Words for Influence and Impact. So tell the listeners a little bit about your latest book, because I think it's a really important one. I've read it. I love it. And it definitely resonates with me. I've been applying some of it already. And so yeah, tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to write the best big little book that I could. And I've learned through my career that people, particularly business people, are great at buying books. They're just not so good at reading them.
Correct.
And it's the reading of the book that, you know, fuels you the knowledge for you to then go and apply and get some action from it. So I wanted to write a book that I knew people could pick up and read, that was present and relevant towards today's marketplace, that even whilst reading it, you can start thinking about application. Worst case scenario, you could read it cover to cover in 90 minutes and then go put something into action that very same day. And I think that we've achieved that. So it's a short and simple read that is full of powerful and precise word choices that talk straight to the subconscious brain. Subconscious brain is the key part when it comes to decision making. And I'm sure many of the listeners right now have found themselves in conversations and just wish that they could find the right words.
Yeah.
Or they found themselves stepping away from a conversation thinking, I should have said, or why didn't I mention, or I wish I had something on the tip of my tongue at that moment in time. So instead of giving people detailed big business principles or talking about the depth of psychology that I've gone through to be able to study this, I wanted to give people exactly what to say. Give them precise sets of circumstances, precise sets of words, precise examples that they can use that allow them to be able to be more persuasive and ensure that more of their conversations count. That's what the book does. And the reports back from everybody who's read it so far, bar the 2 1-star reviews on Amazon, but hey, what do they know? Have been that it's delivered exactly that. So I'd be delighted for anybody to grab themselves a copy. They can find it on amazon.com.co.uk, wherever it is they go shopping. Exactly What to Say, Phil M. Jones. And love to hear what people think about it. So tweet me, message me on Facebook, come shoot a note in through the website, etc., about how you like it or how it works for you. And I'd be delighted to join in the conversation.
I mean, what I loved about it is that you don't only explain what it will do using those words, but it also, it's the examples, that makes it come alive, being able to put it. So in fact, I highlighted all of the examples throughout it. So I can just literally open it up and go to the example and use that. And I've started using it, in my emails, in my conversations with people. And, it works in the emails. It definitely works. So yeah, thank you. This is like a little handbook for people. They can have it. I've got it download on my Kindle. I've got it on my phone. I can just open it at any time and just refer to it. Yeah, it's good to have the physical copy too, but having the electronic copy means you can literally just refer to it. If you're stuck with something and you're trying to write this particular email, you can just refer to it and say, yeah, I can include these words. So yeah, thank you. I think every business person, and even if you're not a business person, even if you're an employee, I think if you want to persuade and influence people at work, this is what you need to have too. And
not even just at work, Michael. I mean, if you want to use it to get your spouse or your loved one to do something that they wouldn't have done otherwise, or to better manage your kids into doing things, then this is practical skills for life.
Totally, yeah. And it's not tricking people into anything. It's just being authentic and using the right words to help people open up, because people are shut down, aren't they? And they're shut down because they're worried what the consequences are going to be if they're going to reveal something or say something. And what you're doing, actually, I think you're doing them a favor by helping them to open up and actually express themselves better.
You got it. That's all it's about.
Yeah. Wow. So literally fantastic stuff. I really enjoyed our conversation. I've got one last question for you, and that is, how can people get in touch with you? Where would you like, to speak with them, or so they can follow you and see what you're doing? I've seen loads of places where you're at, and I'm following you as many places as I can to get those nuggets from you. So share everything, all the locations you can, Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the best kind of hub to find out about me is on my website, which is www.philmjones.com. It needs the M, otherwise you find the Manchester United soccer player. And from there, you can navigate towards all of my social profiles. I'm everywhere that you'd expect me to be.
Yeah.
One more thing on my website, though, is somewhere down on the first page, in about 2/3 of the way down in the middle, is a chance for you to subscribe and grab some free stuff. So we'll send you some video resources, we'll send you an audio download and some PDFs of some other tools that might help you. And that will also subscribe you to my weekly newsletter, 90 Seconds, that keeps you posted on many of the things that we have going on. What else can you do is if you want to join the conversation with me, both LinkedIn and Twitter are the two places where you find me in person most. And on Twitter, I'm at PhilMJonesUK. Shoot me a tweet, mention me in something, then it's me that you'll be getting a reply or a response from. And I'm active on those profiles. Would love to hear what people have implemented, what they've taken action on, what's resonated most to them.
And the other channels or the other locations that I thought were really good is your YouTube channel.
Yeah.
And also, what I didn't realize and I discovered today is that you've got an app as well.
Correct. There's an app full of podcasts and resources and videos, etc. So, I'm in the business of serving people, and whatever medium people best like to absorb their information in, we've tried to make something work and be right for them, and we're continually pioneering to improve and add to those things too.
Well, I'll be sharing all the links in the notes, and people can find those, and they get in touch with you and connect with you and follow what you're doing and what you're up to and get hold of all your free stuff, which is absolutely amazing. So, Phil, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate your nuggets and your ideas and your thoughts. You're a true inspiration to the world, and I look forward to following you and everything that you're up to. And hopefully we'll meet up for lunch either in New York or London sometime. And take care, and thanks again.
All righty. Well, thank you so much for having me, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Staying Alive UK. Share your story.